I really want to do a presentation on visible learning and the works of Hattie, John Hattie for several years since I've been here. Now you're going to see him talk about kids and like the studies are more focused on like K-12. However, I feel it's very relevant for what we're doing. I like this because the work that John Hattie and the research that he did really focuses in on the strategies that you can really focus in on deeply to impact learning. Now, I'm not going to think about my choices. I'm doing this. You can kind of consider that as you like. But here we go. Some visible learning.
Enid decided to come.
Enid decided to show up today. She is no longer online. She's in person. So these are the things we're going to try here. We're going to explain the key messages of visible learning. We're going to describe the signature practices or the focuses of the research that you can focus in on. And then you can identify, as we're going through this, a potential starting point. Look at your teaching and consider, hey, I could do this to really impact what's going on with my students. You know, you come into my classroom or into my office and there's a yellow Post-it note. It's been here since day one. It's the whole goal is what can I do to improve student learning? And so the mindset, that's my mindset. And I don't know that my mindset as an educator was like that all the time. Yeah, I wanted students to learn, but it wasn't so focused on student learning. And this visible learning really dives you deep into exactly what you could do to have the biggest impact on student learning. Because whoa, that's big writing. The goal is to make teaching and learning visible, so visible that we can see our impact and work together with students, because we want to work with those students and have them be collaborators in their learning, and leverage feedback to decide where to go next with learning. And that might be you saying, hey, I need to go back, or the students know this, so we need to accelerate and go forward, but using these strategies to do that. So we're going to listen to 3 minutes of John Hattie here. He is from Australia. Meet.
Hi, I'm John Hattie. I work and live here at the University of Melbourne in Australia, and I spent quite a bit of my time over the last years on a project I call Visible Learning. Now, visible learning actually has 3 different meanings. The first is the research. What I do is I synthesize meta-analyses, other people's literature studies, and I'm now up to 1,600 of those. In the first Visible Learning book I had 800, I've now doubled the number. And it looks at all the different kinds of influences that make a difference to the learning lives of students. I look at the home, the family, what the child brings to the occasion, the teachers, the principals, the finances, the policies, the teaching strategies, you name it, I try to include it. And what I'm trying to do is to change the debate and move it away from asking the question we've always asked about what works. Because it turns out that about 97% of things that we do to students enhances their learning. Yeah, 97% enhances learning. It's pretty easy to find evidence to make a difference to kids' achievement. I want to change the debate and ask what works best. What are the influences that really make the biggest difference to kids' lives? And certainly when you look at the evidence, a majority of teachers in schools now are actually making a huge difference to kids' lives. Those kids are gaining more than a year's growth for a year's input. And that's something we should really esteem. And so one of the arguments is, have we got the courage to reliably identify those teachers in schools, understand what they're doing, form a collective around them, and upscale that so that every kid's can have the benefit of a great teacher by design, not by chance. So the first part of visible learning is the research. The second part is implementing it in schools. And this is where I have a great team around the world that have built up an incredible experience of putting these notions into place. And it turns out it's not so much what teachers do, it's how they think about what they do. You can get 2 teachers using exactly the same high intervention strategy. One case it could work, the other case it won't. And it comes back to how they think. And so we spend a lot of time looking at the mind frames of those teachers. When teachers walk into classrooms and say, my job today is to understand my impact. they have the biggest impact on kids' learning. Discussions about what that impact means, who's getting that impact and about what. And the third part of visible learning is the students. Listening to them speak, listening to them think, trying to get them to talk aloud more about their thinking so that you better understand about errors they're making, what misconceptions. And so bringing all those three things together is what I call visible learning, and I invite you to be part of that.
We'll come to that part next. Just want to double check my people here, so I have a bigger. Oh, G's here also. Okay. Hey, G.
Looks like you have something in the chat.
I have something in the chat. I think that was good morning from Mallory. All right. So a little background. Meta-analysis summarizes, integrates, and interprets sets of research so that they can be meaningfully compared to other sets of research. Effect size, which we're going to look at, tells us the potential of a particular influence, or in this case, strategies, potentially, to impact student learning. Those are pumpkins.
I was just gonna ask what
Well, you know,
significance.
we are growing students. We are growing students, and we need the right kind of
seeds.
we need the right kind of ingredients to make that work best. The potential must be converted into true impact through effective implementation. So how we implement these things.
Wait for it.
Well, we have soil in the background here now. So what soil, Enid, increases potential for accelerating growth. So the key message is what we talked about is one of the goals. You know, one of the things that's really important with visible learning is teacher mindset. We got to know how we can impact. We got to think as evaluators. I know we talk a lot about thinking as assessors. Similar. Make better decisions. So as we plan out our lessons and how we're going to teach something, we need to make better decisions based on what's out there that can impact at a high rate student learning. The next thing is classroom environment. You know, those relationships are really important, but that climate is the thing that we should think about first as we're going into that room. The learning second and the achievement third. So create that great climate, welcoming climate, then make it great teaching, and then we'll work on that. We'll get the achievement because of that. Students should drive their own learning. You know, a lot of times I hear faculty tell me, well, you know, the students just do the work to get it done. Well, how can we make it part of their daily lives and not just a task to complete, right? Like, how can we make learning active in their brains and in their lives? And it's a collective responsibility between faculty to faculty and faculty to students. So everyone needs to be part of that ownership group. So those are the key messages of visible learning. And as we start to look at it, these are some of the questions that you're going to want to consider. Like, as we start to look at our teaching and start to look for impacts, what makes for good learning happening? Well, I didn't write that very well. In your classroom or program, where are the gaps? What's missing? Where can we grow? Fix that later. So this is the instrument we're going to use to kind of measure. And so this here effect size thermometer, I had to monkey around with in Canva to make it so it would match the colors of different screens that we're going to see here. We're aiming for that stuff in the light blue and dark blue. That's the highest impact. So we're going to look at the highest impact, but we're also going to look at the stuff that has a negative impact, because there are items that have a negative impact. It could be things that teachers do, but it could also be just environments that the students come from. And so we're going to try to promote the areas over there in the hot blue. Here it is again. Red zone, negative. Yellow, green, above, 0, positively impacts, but not like the blue zone does. Ooh, I got some blue fire over there. We want to heat up learning in it.
Did call it hot blue.
Yeah, anything above 1.0 increases student learning by 50%. So this is the chart I actually have, and I know it's really tiny, but those colors kind of pop out at you so you can kind of find things quickly. I'm always looking at this, trying to figure out what's best. So that's why I wanted to, here's another chart, because there are 250 plus. You see a lot of light blue on here and blue. Back in 2018, these were the highest effect size. And so we're going to dig deeper into some of these. You're going to see up there the first one, collective teacher efficacy, 1.57. Well, actually, it's 1.55 now. But that, oh, it is still 1.57. I thought it went down to 1.55. So the collective teacher efficacy, like the common belief that all of our faculty believe students can learn, or all the faculty in the nursing program believe students can learn, or PTA, you know, that we all believe students can learn, and that's going to have a huge impact on it, on student learning. So if you consider some of your colleagues, I mean, I've seen some of my colleagues in the past, and I didn't necessarily think they had the mindset that all students learn and could learn. So consider your mindset to have this impact. Consider the people that you're working with, how their mindset is. You know, there's some people that just kind of pack it in and just go through the routine. What's our collective efficacy to make sure what's our belief in students? Can they learn? So just, that's the top one. I love that one. And here's John talking about it.
The new number one in visible learning is teachers' collective efficacy. And on the one hand, that's exciting because it confirms the story. On the other hand, it's a bit of an unfortunate title. It kind of implies that having efficacy, having confidence, having all the teachers in the school believing they can make a difference, it's actually more than that. Now, to have a meta-analysis, you have to have lots of studies. This is not a new idea. This has been around a long time. But it's just that Rachel Ells was the one that pulled it all together to show what its combined effect was. And the message I want to get across, it is teachers working together to have appropriately high, challenging expectations of what a year's growth for a year's input looks like, fed with the evidence of impact. And that's what sustains it. It isn't just growth mindset. It's not just rah-rah thinking. It's not just, oh, we can make a difference. But it's that combined belief that it's us that causes learning. It's not the students. It's not the students from particular social backgrounds. It's not all the barriers out there. Because when you fundamentally believe you can make the difference, and then you feed it with the evidence you are, that is dramatically powerful.
You know, that reminds, we had a cohort meeting for NFE a few weeks back, and one of the faculty members said, there's certain students I have really high expectations for based on their daily work, their daily routines, and like how they come in prepared. And there's other students that don't seem like they want it as much. Sometimes I lower my expectations. And he kind of came to a like, holy cow, I gotta keep those expectations up for everybody. And I gotta believe that they can get there. So that was part of what he was talking about there. I thought this one was interesting. This has got an impact of 1.33, and it's self-reported grades. So the idea here is before an exam, ask your class to write down what mark the students expect to achieve. Use this information to engage the students to try to perform even better. So we'll check out this video here.
Self-reported grades comes out at the top of all influences. Now what that means is, right now, I've taught a series of lessons, I'm going to give you a test. Now before you do the test, I want you to predict what grade you're going to get. Kids are incredibly accurate at doing that. In fact, the most accurate thing that we do in our whole system is they know how they're going to perform. Now that's great, but on the other hand, it raises a couple of questions. The first is, you've got to seriously ask why we test kids. In fact, my argument is very simple. The only reason you test a kid in the classroom is to find out what you, the teacher, has done well, what you haven't done well, and with whom. There's not much point doing it for the kids because they know. But here's the killer. What students so often do is they set safe targets. They say, for instance, like we used to do in our university days, well, if I can get a C here, I'm doing okay. I haven't done a lot of work, so just passing's okay. Or maybe I can get a B+. And they set safe targets. Our job, I believe, is to mess that up. Our job is to never meet the needs of kids. It's never to help kids reach their potential. Our job is to help kids exceed what they think they can do. And so understanding what targets they set when they go about their work is important, and our job is to say they can do a lot better, which means giving them the confidence they can do it. Obviously teaching them the skills so they can do it. If I was redoing it again, I'd probably relabel self-reported grades as student expectations, because that's really what they are, is the expectations students set for their work. And my major and loud message is that we need to get in front of that. We need to raise those expectations and give the students the confidence and the skills and the understandings that they can exceed. Doing their best is never good enough.
Imagine being a great coach. Like, I feel like I just went through like a pregame speech from a coach there. Like, he fired me up there. Like, getting students to exceed what their expectations is. And have we thought about that as teachers before? Like, hey, their expectations here, but I want to take them above their expectations. So that's fired up. That's all we're going to say there is fired up. The jigsaw method, and I've talked about the jigsaw method in lots of different new faculty experience. Yeah, I have all these words on the left. That's why I added a short video on the right for, there's so many awesome ways to see this stuff. So
Many things can positively influence learning in a classroom, but what's going to have the most impact? And number 5, we have the jigsaw method. Essentially, you break the class into home groups with an equal amount of students in each group. If you have 30 students, you can have groups of 5. The lesson material is also broken up into 5 parts, with each student receiving a part. If the lesson is on sustainable energy, the 5 parts could be wind power, solar power, biomass, hydro energy, and geothermal energy. In their home groups, students will study their parts individually. Then students break into expert groups, joining up with students who have received the same topic. In the expert group, students will discuss the main points of the topic and create a mini presentation that they'll share back with their home groups. This provides an opportunity for students to fill in any gaps in their knowledge and eliminate misconceptions. Students then return back to their home groups and present to their peers.
I know I'm shot a lot of videos, but like that was explained in a minute 20-ish. This huge strategy, this is the top 5 strategy according to the research, like really quick with great pictures. So consider how you could use that within your class. I used that for when I was in financial literacy, talking about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and Badger Care. I'd break them into groups of 4. They'd each become experts. One become an expert on Badger Care, one on Social Security, which they actually had a lot of work, those Social Security folks. And then they would all meet together, talk about it. Then they go meet with their, like, just like she explained it. They become the expert, then they teach it to others.
I think that's the impact there, is that they're teaching. Yeah. So when a student has to teach, it's become how we become masters of our content knowledge. After teaching it 10 years in a row, you become an expert in the content material, right? So I think that's the biggest impact in the jigsaw.
I'm just, look, I just do it a little different. I've done it a little differently, where you start in your expert group and then you teach and then you shift to other groups and teach that.
There's different variations.
Yeah. I do it a lot for like test reviews.
Yeah, this would be for new information though, too. And consider this, if you talk a lot and you lecture a lot, your voice probably becomes dulled out over time, right? And to have somebody else teach them that information,
Fresh perspective.
Changes the volume for a little bit and brings your voice some more volume in the future also. Yeah, so it's exciting stuff. Integrating prior knowledge. I think we call this interleaving from the book Small Teaching. So it's all coming together here. Small Teaching is a book that we all get in NFE 1. If you've been through New Faculty Experience Course 1, just different strategies to activate prior knowledge, highlight connections and the different contrasts that are happening, strengthening that memory bridge in your brain. So it could be just as simple as coming into the class. You taught something the first Monday, next Monday you come in there. Hey, what did we discuss last week? Write down 3 things. Let them look back through their notes. Hopefully they're taking notes. If they're not, maybe we got to teach them how to take notes. But one of the things that I've noticed with note taking, and I noticed with myself too, I'll take notes. Do I look back at them? And that's a huge part of note taking. I know that Laura Johnson got like her first semester as a full time. She's been living in these concept maps and creating visual maps that her students can take notes on. So it's not just a straight notepad. It looks a little different, has some headers and things. Got prompting questions. Have students talk about it. Have them really summarize what you've talked about. Encourage students to verbalize connections. Yeah. So interleaving was what that would be within our small teaching book. Effect size 0.93. So these are all other ones that have a light blue to hot blue effect size. Look at that micro teaching video review. I mean, I was just looking at NFE4 and someone was talking about making micro teaching, micro lesson videos for those online courses, but they're for everybody, truly. That's got a very good effect size, really good for our Gen Z and Gen Alpha learners. You're going to see that you probably have on your schedule a thing for spring colloquium, Gen Z and Gen Alpha learners. We're going to dig deep into that and give some different ideas on how you can design courses for them. But look at that, micro teaching's up there, 0.88. The thing is, it takes time. Yeah, I got to do my lecture over here, and now I got to make other smaller videos. But our younger students, and I guess I also like the shorter videos too. I'm not a younger student. Classroom discussion, 0.82. Look at down there, feedback, 0.70. 0.70. That's half of what the teacher efficacy was, but still on the hot level. So here he's going to talk, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. We're going to move over here to 303.
When you look at all the different influences on student learning, one of the most powerful is feedback. And I've spent the last 10, 15 years trying to understand feedback because whilst it's one of the most powerful, it's also most variable. About 1/3 of the feedback doesn't work, it's negative. The same feedback for one child doesn't work with another child. The same feedback today doesn't work tomorrow. And that variability is really critical. So Shirley Clark and I have spent a lot of time over the last years putting together a book we've just published on feedback to look at that variability. And it turns out there are 2 things that really matter the most. The first is feedback is the answer to one of 3 questions. Where am I going? How am I going? And where to next? And if there is no where to next feedback, many students say, I never got any. So having more where to feedback is really critical. The second thing and most powerful thing is it's not about the feedback you give. It's about the feedback that you hear. How do teachers hear the feedback about what they're doing in their classrooms? And that's the 2 big underlying themes. And I invite you to read the Visible Learning book on feedback as it tries to unravel that beautiful paradox of the power of feedback.
Nothing better than the students that after you, assess them with a competency or practical, and they're like, so what can I do better?
Yeah.
Oh, I love you.
I've also had students say, when I ask, did you read my feedback? They'll say, if I get the grade, if I'm happy with my grade, I don't even look at your feedback. Put a lot of effort into my feedback and I'm like, sometimes, in fact, a lot of times it's very encouraging, and you would probably be like, oh, okay, that's great. I got some good feedback. It's not often negative.
Have you ever thought about taking the first 5 minutes of the next class and saying, this is how you access your feedback, this is how you look at it, and I want you to take time to do it right now. I'm going to walk around.
I've also thought
I
about
think
doing
it's
the recording my feedback too
Yeah.
in Blackboard rather than so that they can just click on something and not read it so they can hear it.
We have great apps and extensions that if you'd
Yeah.
like to utilize, a little bit of video, a little bit of audio, I would do that especially on bigger summative assessments, especially projects, because instead of sitting there doing 10 different comments in 10 different areas, I'd summarize it and do it in a nice, 30-second video. Yeah, absolutely. The bigger the assessment, the more I would do the audio and video, the smaller I would, more handwrite it, type it.
I like what he said about where am I going or where to go. I like that.
So what if you gave that feedback? I mean, well, first off, we got to take more, if feedback's important, right? 'Cause it's showcasing where the student needs to go next if you're doing it correctly, right? So taking more time to show how, going into student preview and showing how to view feedback, because they might not even know
We
that.
have a lot of students that said that.
They don't know.
You have to do like 3 or 4 clicks too. So they honestly might, and it's not as clear as and intuitive as many things are in Blackboard, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so based on the feedback, so maybe you create a journal. So that next time they come in there, you create a journal and maybe the question just based on the feedback, what's your next level of achievement? Right? 'Cause so where are they going? Now they describe where they're going. So, I mean, I just kind of thought of that on the fly, but that's a way that you could use your Blackboard shell.
Mhm.
If the feedback has that much impact, we need to have them have a thoughtful time with it, reflection with it, and own their learning. When they talk about the future achievement, that's their owning their learning part.
Mhm.
And then you're also mindset, you're setting that climate
Yeah.
environment in your classroom, where they're starting to think as learners, not just as task doers.
I agree. Like I wouldn't do it a ton, but if you ever asked a student, how do you think you did? Like right after, I would do that occasionally. And boy, the honest answers you would get, they are their harshest critics too.
Yeah.
Or
do that
like
in
we do
skills.
a-
They do that in life skills tests when they're done.
We do a group project and one of the components was self-assessing their amount of work that they put forward and whatnot. And they always downgraded themselves, whereas their peers would grade them higher. So like it is a powerful thing for them to retrospectively say, how did I do? What kind of work did I put into this,
You do with that student that thinks they did so much better.
Oh, there's those instances as well. Mhm.
Does anybody else have strategies they use for feedback like that we haven't discussed? I'll check the chat again. I got away from that. I did see in there Jill's comment. I didn't even know that. Where to go here about the jigsaw method. I just used it because it worked. That's a another facet there. Direct instruction, look at that, since we have no more ideas for feedback there, but direct instruction, less than feedback's more important as far as impact by a little than direct instruction, so that just the lecture style. But classroom discussion is above that. Well, impactful classroom discussion, ones that get everyone involved, ones that, have meaning and move the learning forward. Deliberate practice, like I think about that as the hands-on. So when I see this stuff, I get excited and I think about, well, you know what? Maybe there's less time on lecture and I put more time into a micro teaching video and then I have more classroom discussion. But maybe I spend a little more time on that feedback. Yeah. Even just look at that evaluation reflection. They do a summative. Again, that's another time to think about why they did how they did on there.
Even if it's like an easy topic that you're like, well, do I really need to lecture on this? Could I just make a micro video of it instead? Whereas you save your lectures for a more difficult concept that's higher level that a lot of students struggle with, right? Yeah.
Jill.
I was gonna say the deliberate practice, if he defines it the same way that most psychologists do, a big part of that is also feedback. So it's like practicing something, but getting feedback that helps you to improve. Like it came out like, if you've heard people talk about like the whole like 10,000 hours to become an expert or whatever it is, it's not just practicing. Like you can practice the wrong thing over and over, but like the important part of deliberate practice was that you were getting feedback on ways to continue to like improve and do it correctly. So like, I mean, a lot of these, they work because they're using multiple elements of these together. Like even like the classroom discussion, part of the reason that works is because they're getting feedback while they're doing it. So I don't know, a lot of it comes back to the feedback.
We had, I was talking to a IMAC instructor and they were telling me about a student on a drill press. And the drill press, they're trying to drill through some harder substance and it was shaking. And like the drill press was giving them feedback. But instead of going at the instructor, is this wrong? They went to another student. Is the student's feedback going to be as? So then they kept going and they burnt out the whole drill bit. So and then the instructor had to go back and say, well, this is what you're looking for. And the machine is actually going to give you feedback. So like that would be a practice skill that was going on there. And that Beatles thing, or the 10,000 hours, I always think about the Beatles. They went to Germany for their 10,000 hours and they got a lot of positive and negative feedback before they became a big hit. So like the 10,000 hours, I always love talking about that. So thanks for bringing that up. Any more? Do I have any more up there? Oh, we have, is our hand still up? Oh, Steve, a man that knows what I'm thinking.
There you go. Perfect segue.
Boom, boom, boom.
Steve.
When students came into my classroom, we had walk-in music. Wow, didn't have much of an impact, but they did sure enjoy walking in if they liked my music.
There was a teacher at Judah that would play the guitar while students were taking a quiz or a test.
Well, that would probably do the negative for me.
Yeah, and it was bad.
But
I'm not naming names, they're not there anymore.
so the music,
Oh,
do
no.
we have another one in there?
No.
Oh, there we go. All right. Humor. As funny as I thought I was, it wasn't very impactful. Now look at this, a student's lack of sleep. Negative impact. So I think about these when I was at Milton, these hockey players, they had to drive to Stoughton for hockey practices every morning. It was like a 4:30 practice. Like what was I getting from them during the winter months? Students feeling disliked. Negative 19.19, negative 1.9. Connection to classmates and teacher is not visible to student. They don't feel connected at all. They're not engaged. That's the climate. Depression. Boredom. And then the HD, like huge impact. If not addressed. Negative impact. I mean, so yeah, Steve, all that music you're playing out there in the diesel area probably not helping. I've never heard music out there before. It's too loud. Check that. Oh, Michelle's in the house. Yeah, it's deep. Hey, Michelle. Yeah, I wasn't shocked by that last one at all, but as I dug deeper into this, I started looking at the negatives to kind of get a better feel for like, well, what's the what can take away from learning? And yeah, I was surprised by humor.
A lot of environment and a lot of social implications, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I felt like when I had funny teachers, I engaged more. But did I remember them as teachers? I don't remember what they taught me now that I think about it. So
That's true.
Well, keep in mind though, when you're looking at the alpha there, that like it's not saying the humor is taking away. It's just not adding to the learning though either.
No, totally. I just wanted to have more of an impact, Joe.
Mhm.
I wanted to be 2.0. No.
If
No.
it's used correctly, it could help to like counteract a little bit of the boredom, perhaps.
Perhaps.
When I was a high school math teacher during work time, I'd play quiet music in the background. And I don't know that it helped very much, but like Jill said, I think for the boredom,
Yeah.
I'd walk around to make sure they're on task.
Yeah.
But some of these things you can't
Control.
Like,
Some of it's their home life.
I'd have a student come in and they'd put their head down and go to sleep as soon as they walked in there because they had like they had depression, like they had other things going on. And like I had a Keurig in my classroom. I would just put a coffee on their desk, and like they would look up at me, drink a little, and eventually they'd drink that whole coffee and they'd be a little more awake. All right. So we're nearing the end of your session. Any commentary that we want to throw in? Any thoughts of how, like, as you saw some of these things, how could you make a bigger impact on, I guess that would be the question. How could you, based on some of these strategies, ideas, impacts, what could you start to focus in on to impact learning in your classroom, in your program, in your course? Even in your course shell, like what kind of classroom environment could you make there? Like, any thoughts on that? Don't all speak at once.
So I haven't done it in my classes here, but in the program it was an online program that I used to teach in, and we would oftentimes give students 2 attempts on like certain assignments. And one thing that we'd make them do on the second attempt, and I will say they didn't have to take the second attempt. It was only if they didn't it was a competency-based program. So only if they didn't meet competency the first time. On their second time, not only did they have to, obviously turn in another attempt, but with the attempt, they had to highlight what they changed in the attempt and then write a little comment that like addressed what they changed, which I think was like a good activity for them because first of all, that they read the feedback then because they had to in order to do the second attempt. And it helped them see how they like learned and grew from the feedback. So that like you could make sure that they were understanding the feedback and like it was actually helping their learning as opposed to just getting the feedback and then kind of moving on.
I like that. With correct parameters, those things can really work well. Like the parameters that you talked about. We just did a CETO watch party last week. A person did a research, which was a small study on a community college, which was Madison College, about doing retakes on tests. And they set forth some really strong parameters to make sure that it was focused and students put the effort in the first time. Not just, I'm just going to take this test and see what happens. And they found that didn't happen. The people actually put the effort in the first time. So with the right parameters. So I like the retake idea. If you need that video for that CETO watch party, we can get that out to y'all. Anything else? Anyone else got any focuses?
Feedback,
Oh.
making sure that our instructors, because we don't see what the students see, making sure that they know how to tell the students how to find feedback.
You and Enid and G was out there like overseeing programs. That could be a goal for a program, right? Like we're gonna really dive into feedback this semester and really aim at changing how students look at feedback and how we address. Do we tell them where they're going and help them to navigate what's next in their learning pursuit and make them students that drive their education? Like that's something that you have that beautiful opportunity to set forth. You guys talked at the same time, so I didn't know what was gonna happen, but it happened.
No, I was just gonna say, because feedback is important to me, getting feedback, giving feedback, and because I put so much time into it, taking some more, like you're saying, make sure that the students actually know how to find my feedback.
And on Friday, we had a session too, a 30-minute one where like you can take a bigger summative assessment and break it up into checkpoints and make that feedback be a part of the final submission, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've broken
That's
it up
where you're going next,
into
too.
stages, right? Okay, here was part 1.
And I'm a big fan of the like if teaching out of the shell is like what my preferred preference is, I would have a journal in there and have them reflect, so I have a recording of it personally. I really like the journals.
And are you asking your students for feedback occasionally too? I mean, like not only on their self-reflection, but like, how's the class going? I think a mid-course evaluation is not a horrible idea. Or even just an occasional check-in, right? How are things going? I know the semester's busy. Are things going well? You know, like showing that you value their feedback too is also powerful.
Anything else? Oh, we're going backwards, going back in time. That's not impactful. All right, well, I'm going to copy this and put it in